Welcome, fam, to the week one of the 2024 season's recap. I am excited to be joined by none other than the non-expert, Zach Godby. Thank you for showing up, Zachary Godby.
Hello, hello.
Truly appreciate you always being on this, man. I can't thank you enough. You've helped me out a ton with this when others maybe can't, and especially today because I got to do it so early that we got things going on.
Right,
Zach, we got lives, we got
right.
our stuff. I gotta
Yeah.
head to T-ball
Well,
after this.
well, all of you guys do. That's
Yeah, T-ball coach. That's what that says. That was a birthday gift I got from
nice,
Paige and Allison this year. Because so
nice,
I got a
nice.
T-ball coach. So I wear that to every practice, and then I wear a jersey to every game. So that's what I end up
Sweet.
doing.
Awesome.
So yeah, it is cool. I like it a lot. But because of that, Zach, like we're just gonna fly right into it, man. I don't care at all about how you feel today. Okay. I don't
Okay.
care. I'm not gonna even ask you. I'm just gonna have to go right into sharing my stuff. So I'm gonna go ahead and
Sex
share my
almost you almost sound bitter.
I am a little bitter. It's been a tough week, man. I'm just gonna not gonna lie to you. I've had a rough one this week, but at least in the FFFL, it may have been a little better for me, but overall, it's been a rough one. But I do. I always like to get to know you all and talk to you, see how things are going. But we got no time. It is
Yeah.
time for the FFFL. So we are hitting that week one recap. Here's how it always goes. We talk about the week one matchups first, starting with that ass whooping, and then going down to our nail biter. We hit on the injury report with Dr. Sam. He is back for another season. So that is also wonderful. He's always very helpful with that. And we really appreciate it. He does that. Then waiver wire, what to do. So if you have an injury, or hey, it was week one and you took a gamble on somebody, and guess what? They maybe didn't do so good or weren't liking them. We'll try to help you out with that. Trade Central, we did have a trade go through, as many of you may know. So we'll touch on that and get some thoughts on that. Comment of the week, and then wrap up with week two matchups. Zach, are you ready to rock and roll?
Yes, sir.
Beautiful. I love it. Love
Well, as
it.
much as possible. We're gonna see how
Yes.
this goes.
Sorry, sounds good. All right, our first game up was, and I'll try to figure this out here as best I can. The ass whooping of the week, and it was a true ass whooping. I mean, basically, Bob legitimately almost doubled EJ's score. He beat him by almost 85 points. It wasn't even close. And the crazy part to me is that Bob beats him with 85 points, yet he has two players combined for 5.4 points. So DK Metcalf with 4.4, Evan Ingram as a tight end didn't do a darn thing, but yet he still puts up almost 171 points. High point of the week, Bob. You already get $10. So whoop, whoop, good for you. But what are something you saw in this, Zach, or anything that you might notate into why it went the way it did?
Well, I'll just go on a limb right now, real quickly, and say this probably will be the ass whooping of the year. I'm gonna guess. Uh, I guess some things could happen, but yeah, I mean, great week from obviously Bob's guys. I mean, obviously minus
Yeah.
DK and Evan Ingram, but I mean, 39 from Saquon and 33 from Mixon. You know what I mean? I
Oh,
mean, he almost beat EJ just with his two running backs.
that's true. That's true.
You
That's
know,
72 points right there. And all he
right,
needed after that was to add
right.
well, all three of his running backs, basically, the three running backs he played, outscored him.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yes. Yeah. So, and it was a tough week for EJ too. Week one, right? It's a tough week for all the guys. Mahomes, I wouldn't suggest he's going to get 17 points too many times. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
That
don't
was
remember
low,
him.
you know. And to be honest, other than St. Brown, I feel like most of his guys did okay. I mean, I don't think they did terrible. Um,
Well, Zamir didn't live up to it. I mean, in a sense, they all, besides they obviously you had AJ Brown outperform what he needed to do. Brock Bowers, we'll just say he did what he needed to do. He's about right there, but everyone else kind of underperformed. But to your point, you still got double digits from four of your players there. But we play 8 players, and so I think if you're not getting double digits from at least six or of those, then it's going to be a tough week for you.
Right, right.
But not much left on the bone here. Really, I mean, bench wise, we talked about it before of would he play a Rashid Rice or a Xavier Worthy along with Patrick Mahomes? And for me, that would have been over like a Najee Harris, and that's not going to bump him up too much. I mean, you had Rashid Rice get about 15, Xavier Worthy get about 20. No matter what you're doing, you're not beating Bob in this matchup. Bob's team went off and kind of tough,
Yeah,
especially when he gets 26 points from the Bears defense. I mean, that's huge too.
right,
So
right.
lots of high scoring from Bob. Way to whoop on some people in week one, but let's not take away too much from week one. And Amon Ra, I think that's his lowest score. He didn't score even that low one time last year. Last year he had
Right.
one game, I think, below the double digit mark, and it was like still more than what he had here. So tough week all around for that
Right.
one. So we'll go ahead and move on to the next matchup, which was Licho playing against Glenn. And Licho put up a really nice score against Glenn and definitely the top scorer in the East this week with 122 points. And Glenn, the score is deceiving because CMC's in the lineup. You're hoping he plays, and he literally had nobody else. So he had nobody else that he could play. So therefore, like he's gonna be stuck at that 79 point total. And CMC, not saying he's gonna go for that 40, he's not gonna win it for him, but he could do a Saquon, he could do any of those things and get him back up there. What's something that you maybe saw in this that you would do differently, or just what kind of swung it towards Licho?
Well, there was really nothing I would have done different. And I know that sounds silly too because you see Jaden Reed on his bench, right? But Glenn just got unlucky. That's just, I mean, 4 points from Mostert, two from Olave, not
Yeah,
even one from Marvin Harrison,
no,
two from zero from McCall. I mean, that's just unlucky. Like that's
yeah,
not going to happen many weeks, right? So he just got unlucky. And then on the other side, I mean, I feel like Leacho's players kind of did what they were supposed to, minus Nakua. Uh, I know that's a
right.
bummer. And, you know, I understand him playing Palmer. Um, I was looking, it's not, obviously high in sight, it's Jerry Judy scored 10 and Charbonnet scored 12, but I'd probably play with his lineup and the matchup. I would have probably played Palmer there too, right? I mean,
Yeah, yeah. I don't
so
think there. Honestly, not much else you could. I think he's just as good of an option as an Austin Eckler, a
right.
JSN in that moment. I'm not playing Charbonnet because he's a backup. Jerry
Yeah.
Judy has never been anything great, so like I mean,
Yeah.
scared off of him, and the Cowboys or the Browns didn't even look good. Even he got a
Right.
touchdown, so that saved his day. But if he doesn't get that touchdown, what
Right.
Judy's at 4 points. So yeah,
hmm
I think I'm
Well, and
with
it
you
helped him a
there.
lot, obviously. I mean, it was a big win anyway, so not much, but it helped a lot his defense getting 21, right?
Yep.
Like that's a lot for defense.
Hey, and kudos to him because he dropped the Saints defense, or no, the Browns. He dropped the Browns defense, and I question that. I question that more moving forward than I did in this week because against Dallas,
Right.
yeah, I'm not feeling comfortable to play no matter
Right.
how good the defense is. That feels tough. But and so he made that move to drop him, and what a great move! I mean, the Vikings scored 21. They're not even touted as this great defense, but he knew the matchup against the Giants that was
Yeah.
going to pay off for him, and so that was a very smart move he made there. It doesn't hurt to have Lamar Jackson on your team. Trust me, I know as the champion with him as my starting quarterback last year,
Right. Right.
that you'll get those weeks. But don't worry when you see a Lamar Jackson 15 pointer, things like that. So those can also happen. But nice W by
There
Louie
is
and tough
one
break
thing I
for
want to there
yeah,
is
go
one
ahead.
thing I want to add in here. Remind me to mention it because it comes later, but something about trades. Just
Okay.
remind me. Remind me.
Yes, I will. I've got a few probably that'll
That
help remind you for
this game and these two teams are important that I want to mention that.
okay. And I'll even I might throw another one at you too as a funny
Okay.
one. So
Yep.
we'll see. But yeah, nice job, Leacho, getting that victory and being up top atop the East. Next up will be my matchup against Kyle. I was definitely worried about it. I barely eked out my projections, and whereas he didn't hit his, but that's more so Dak Prescott didn't have to do much after a certain. I mean, Cleveland just looked like shit. They just what a
Yeah,
terrible. They just don't look good. So like
yeah,
while it looks like oh man he had a bad week, not really because even CD Lamb's like they just didn't need him after what like the second quarter. Like they didn't
right,
really need him much, so he didn't have to put up much. Those are tough weeks, I think when that happens. Because when you look at his
yeah,
team, kind of to your point before, five of his eight are in double digits. His defense outscores their projection. Everything
right,
kind of seems okay. It's just that nobody had a huge boom week. Nobody really went off on his team. And
right,
same for mine. I mean, without Mike Evans doing his thing, I don't know if I don't get where I'm at because I
right.
had the same thing. I had six guys in double digits,
Yeah.
but I didn't have anybody go nuts, and Kyler didn't hit his projection, and my running backs barely got to there. So I basically eked it out, in my opinion, and it could have been a lot
Yeah.
worse for
Oh,
me.
this is another game to me that was he got unlucky. You
Yep.
got real lucky.
Yep.
Think about if Dak puts up his projections, it's a real close game.
Yeah, at
Real
that point
close
it is.
game.
Yep. But
And
I did
go.
mention that it could come down to like Nico and Tank Dell, and I think it did in a way. For
Mhm.
that, I mean, Nico almost doubled Tank's performance.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's going to be a tough one when you're going up against the wide receivers in that realm, right? Stephon Diggs had a good week and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So some of those things can help eke it out. But you're right.
Yeah.
I feel lucky to have eked out this W because I
Yeah.
still like Kyle's team a
I know
lot.
with him being last place prior, whatever, 2 years ago or something,
First year,
don't get
yeah.
discouraged, Kyle, because that's a good week. And if Dak puts up, I understand his projections 20. If he puts up 25, right, he wins. I
Yeah.
mean, and
Yeah.
he will probably do that more often than not. So
Yep.
I
For the
would
most
just
part,
stay strong, have faith. I
he's
think
coming.
I think Kyle will be okay. He's got a nice team. He's got a
Yeah,
nice team.
he does, and he's coming right back with that same squad next week. I mean, not much to change. We'll talk about some of it
Yeah,
later, but
yeah.
good squad, and I feel lucky that I got away with the victory, and I will take
Mhm.
it. I'll just be honest.
Yeah.
Um, next up, we have Sam with his suck a dick versus Cases Aces, and it looks like Schrute did beat the computer this time, so Sam ends up taking it. Kind of different fashion because he only had four guys in double digits, but all four of those guys are in the 20s with what they're scoring for Sam. Whereas on Casey's side, he had three players or whatever you want to say it, three positions in double digits. His others just couldn't quite get it done, and I think that lack of running back depth, was gonna hurt him in that sense too. Because you see Jalen Warren getting 3.4, that's a tough one to kind of take on at that point. Anything you want to notate about this matchup?
I'm going to keep saying it until something different happens and a trade for, I'm sorry, I'm not knocking the trade, but a trade for Rico Dowdle isn't your answer. Okay. That's
Maybe not.
you deserve to lose all your games for the team that you have. That's just the truth. That's
Sure.
the truth. I'm sorry, but that is
Yeah.
the truth. You're
And
going to
Rick,
have to make some kind of big trade where it might cost you one of those star people that you have, but you're going to have to get a starting running back. Like you have to.
yeah, Aaron Jones did well. So I mean, I think
He did, but
you
that's
roll with
it. You have
exactly.
one
You roll with Aaron Jones.
right,
You
but
roll with Jaden Daniels.
you
You
have
got
one starting running back.
yeah.
You
But
have
I would
one starting.
say you've got a good right. So you have to figure out that running back room. The Rico Dowdle thing, we'll talk about it here in Trade Central when we get there. So we'll talk about that trade a little bit more in
Yep,
depth. But
sure.
yeah, I would say still focus on getting that, the depth you can at running back. A tight end, obviously, he's one less now. So maybe he just like, okay, now I'm good at tight end. I'm not going to mess around with that. But you got some wide receiver depth that you can play around with to try to get some of that running back that you're talking about,
Yeah.
Zach, where you might be able to package Jalen plus one of those receivers and move up in a tier or two for running back because you will need that to compete. And on Sam's side, here's kind of the scary part for Sam's team. He scored, I think, third highest on the week. It may have been something like that. it's either third or fourth. I'll take a look at that. I want to say it was third highest on the week, which doesn't seem like a lot because I don't. We had Louis. I think Louis was second at 122, if I'm not mistaken. So Sam came in third in the week in points and total points scored, with Joe
Hmm.
Burrow only getting less than seven. I mean, it
Right.
was a terrible day for Cincinnati.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that's scary because if you actually get, we'll just say in the teens somewhere close, he's probably closer to 130 at that point,
Mhm.
with a decent game by Burrow, somewhere closer to 20 at that point. But
Right.
he's got to figure out David Njoku because I think he got hurt, so we might have to look at his tight end for that. But overall, really good showing by Sam. Casey side, yeah, you got to work on getting that running back, but you at least have good pieces in Jaden Daniels. Aaron Jones stays; he's going to be boomer bust. You got a good wide receiver core that should do a lot better than what they're doing, but you're going to have to step it up. So it's going to have to get a little bit better. Now we're getting to your matchup with Allison. So for yours, it was like I think I barely eked you out this week. Literally, I think I barely beat you by like point 0.1 or point 0.2 points to like get second in the East. So you're third in the East with your W. I'll let you kind of take this one and roll with it.
I mean, there's not much to say. I think I got really lucky getting the points I got from Josh Allen, especially I can't remember, but he had, I think, negative points at
Yeah.
halftime.
Yeah, it was something real bad.
So
And I was gonna tell you that's the Josh Allen way, man.
yeah,
First half always seems to be like, what is happening here? And then he's Josh Allen.
yeah. And here again, I will say, I know I've said it on multiple matchups this week. I feel like I was pretty lucky to squeak that out. I think Josh Allen helped me, squeak that
Yep.
out. And
Yep.
I said in the, pre first week podcast, I didn't love my matchups this week. I had tough matchups. So I I think as it goes farther, I love my team. I do like my team. I like my starting lineup, but I think I got lucky that I won this week because it was a tough week for me as far as my matchups.
Yeah, I kind of I disagree. I think your top until you get to your tight end, all those are weaker defenses. I mean, Houston, we don't know much about them, but the Colts. Like I just don't know much. Here I'll say I love the Colts. I like Anthony Richardson a lot, but it's going to be it's tough for that team with like that style. That's a weird style of play. I'll just say that. But Houston's like, but Arizona's bad. They're a bad defense. Jacksonville's not great. They're about mediocre. Washington is terrible. They're one. I think they might be the worst defense in the NFL. I don't know. But Pittsburgh's good. The Jets are good. Ayuk will be better. I think Ayuk will. That's just not he didn't play, and they're not, and like
Right.
he's not a CD or a Jamar
Well,
where
and he
them
dropped
not
a
playing.
touchdown. If he would have got that touchdown, I mean that I would have
Sure,
had, 12 points or something like that
yeah,
from him.
but he's not a guy that's going to demand the targets they will. So even if their
Right.
games, even if they never played the entire offseason like Ayuk did,
Right.
San Fran has a lot more weapons. They can keep going to other guys. Whereas
Well, that was a last second decision. I don't know if anyone looked at that, but Ayuk went on my bench. I
oh
was
okay,
start I switched McLaurin and put Godwin in my starting lineup, and I forget who I put in, who I was playing. Oh, I was going to play Jordan Mason, and then
how do
I
you not
switched
play?
it.
How do you not play Jordan Mason?
I I just wasn't sure because I didn't know about Christian McCaffrey. I didn't know if he was playing or not.
Yeah. So I guess if you're busy in that moment, then you don't know
Right.
that
I
that's
get
happening. But I
that
would
was
say
my initial
yeah,
plan, and then I ended up with Ayuk back in the lineup. So if people were paying attention, I had Ayuk out of my and and
so because I mean that's a 26-point difference right there, man. You'd be
right.
at that 130, you'd be at 138 instead
Yeah.
of where you're at,
Yeah.
at this point. So you'd have been 138, number one in the East. So
Yeah.
that's tough. But hey, you got the victory. All is well.
Yeah.
Allison's team, I don't know where to go with it. She needed the tight end, so we'll talk Trade Central. That works.
Hmm.
Uh, I Tajay Spears, man, it looks like Pollard's got that backfield right now, and he looks better than Tajay Spears. So that might be a
Right.
tough one for her. She might need to look a different spot for that flex spot as well. So we'll have to see what happens there. But victory
Yeah.
nonetheless. Um, and she could get better. She's got to make some moves. She made a move today, but like that, she's got to work on that team too, because who knows what kind of depth is there in order for
Yeah.
her to actually be able to get stuff done.
Yeah.
Um, but we'll move on. So nice victory, Zach. Doesn't matter how
Thank
it
you.
happens. We'll take the ugly ones along with the pretty ones.
Yeah.
And then last but not least, I'm considering this our nail biter, even though it was technically over by Sunday. But this is definitely not least because the guy that we both picked to potentially win this whole thing, Andy. I mean, his team just there's a bed over there and it's full of brown stains. I mean, it is not good. And Tyler got that W, even with negative points from his defense. So what did you see here in this barn burner?
He started Javante Williams.
Yeah, he did. And we might touch on this here. We may touch on
I
this
don't know.
here in a
I
little
can't
bit.
do anything but laugh. I'm sorry. I know
Because
it's what a
it may
dick.
be a different way it goes if they decided to take a trade and play that person. That could be a difference in a victory or not. So,
I'm just saying he
well,
would have won the week if he would have took that trade and started Godwin. He would have won.
that's true. I am not denying that. We'll get
But
it.
it's obviously that's 2020 hindsight, right? Like I get it. He had a bad week, man. It was rough, you know. I mean, 2 points from Drake London, that killed
Ugh,
you.
ugh,
That hurts, right? You know, 4 from Travis Kelsey, you don't expect that very often,
right,
right? And
right.
I mean, if I'm being honest, I mean, 4 from Javante is extremely low, even
Yeah,
for a
that's
bad
weird.
Denver team. You would think just in carries alone, you would get 4 points.
Yeah.
So, he just had a really bad week. You know, that was a
Yep.
rough week. And
Real
I
tough
mean,
one.
honestly, Tyler was lucky to squeak this out because he had a bad week too, if you really break it down. I mean,
Completely. He underperformed by 13 points for his team. It did not look great.
no,
There's a lot to not like. There's things to like though as well. I like that he has Zach Moss because everyone was on the Chase Brown train and thinking that he was going to be it, and Moss is
right,
showing like they're going with Moss. We'll see. Uh, Pittman, I'm a little worried on just because that offense, like the way that it's running, and Anthony Richardson looks great, and that's your focal point, but that does make other people not so attractive. And where's
right.
that go? So we'll see. But shoot, the Diggs Stroud connection was there this week. That worked out well for him, and that helped him eke out that victory. Honestly, I think it was that Stroud Diggs piece of getting 40 some odd with those two combined was really nice, and that was helpful. On Andy's side, I don't like he's got Jordan Love hurt and he's going to be out for some time. He's going to be out there saying like 3 to 6 weeks. I
Hmm.
know that he's not one. He's not even carrying another QB. I was just no, he is. He's got Justin Herbert. But how do you feel about Justin Herbert? Going in there. I think they just played Las Vegas. They're a middle of the road defense, and he got
Good
13
luck.
points. Yeah. So
I mean, luckily, we've talked about this. Bad, unlucky week from Andy, but I like his team. So he might get some wins here and there, even with Herbert in there.
yeah,
That's very likely, right? With this roster. Again, just pretty unlucky week, I think.
yeah.
Just,
Agreed. To
you know,
lose and to
almost everyone has gotten it by this point. It's week 1 in the
yep,
NFL. It's always a toss up. The first couple, 2, 3 weeks normally is kind of weird, right?
yep,
You got these players that you expect to do this and they don't do anything. And then you got these players that you expect to do this and they far exceed it. So,
yeah. Oh, I completely agree. Don't get too high and don't get too low after week one. And it is tough. It's tough when you've waited so long for this to be the case and you're excited and you draft your team. And, I think with everybody's and every team, it's like, you for the most part usually like most of it. And then you might have some question marks on some, but it's never anything too crazy. But yeah, never get too high and never get too low after week one. or like you were saying, two or three. Like, it's still super early in the season. A lot of adjustments that can be made, and a lot of things that will happen. I mean, injuries occur every week, right? It's like huge things happen that make huge swings. So
Yeah.
if you were on the winning side this week, good for you. That's awesome. At least you kind of eked out that week one scare. And if you didn't, shake it off. Trust me, I'm in way too many leagues, and I think I'm 3-7 on the week. That's what I was.
Yeah.
Eh, it happens. And in two or three of those, I was the lowest scoring team by far. So I'm not, but it's week one. I'm not too concerned. Uh,
Congratulations to all the week one winners.
yeah, thank you. Thank you, Zach. We're a part of that. But like I said at the beginning of this show, Dr. Sam has signed on for another year. And while I ran out of time to get sponsors for him, sorry, Sam, I'll pay you from my own pocket this week for it. He just still did an injury report for us, and I greatly appreciate that. So we're gonna play Dr. Sam's injury report here and see what he's got to say about what's happening.
Before you do,
Yes.
I really hope that Andy watches every one of these and Louie, because I am nominating Andy and Louie as full-time sponsorship managers. So
Oh,
they
okay.
they are to find the sponsors.
I like it.
I nominate that because they did a great job at it last year. They can continue that trend, I believe.
That sounds good. So I'll throw it out to them like, hey, make sure you watch the podcast. I need your submission by Sunday. I need
Monday night.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I needed everything written up. That way I can because I got to do my work, on my side to get it into form. So
Look at how professional this guy is. Look at
I'll
this video. What are we doing?
he's got his gear on too. This is the NFL, Sam, not
Oh,
the CFL or the CLL
right.
or whatever college football. I mean, I don't know what he's doing, but let's give him a chance. Let's give him an opportunity, and let's see what Dr. Sam has to say. You can't hear it, Zach?
No. And it started as soon as he said something, I could hear, and then it went away.
Interesting. Okay. So I'm gonna play it one more time because I just want to see if you can get it. And I'm sorry for those because this is in mid recording. But I tried to like record it. Oh, I already know it. Yeah. So you're not gonna get it. So I'm gonna send it separate. I forget there's like a button. I got like a different thing I gotta click for it. So I feel terrible about it.
So, so
Here's what I'm gonna do actually. I got another idea. Yeah, I'm gonna stop sharing. So I just stop the share, and then I'll just reshare.
yeah, yeah,
And and then there's some button that I share sound. Yep, there we go. Okay. It's a different it's a different layout this year with Zoom. So Zoom's updated and now it's
yeah.
spot. So now part two of this the share of will happen. Now we can listen to Dr. Sam. Thank you for letting me know that, Zach.
Yes, sir.
Welcome to the week one injury report. This is going to be a shortened version since my contract for the season is still under dispute. Starting off with Jordan Love, quarterback for the Packers, suffered a sprained MCL in the Thursday night football game or Friday night. Typically, MCL is going to be 2 to 4 weeks, not as unstable as when an ACL or a PCL injury happens. So just kind of have to see how they progress through the rehab protocol. Typically not going to be as mobile when they return. Jake Ferguson of the Dallas Cowboys and Rome Odunze of the Chicago Bears also suffered MCL sprain. So those timelines have not become available yet since those injuries were on Sunday. They'll probably end up running some more tests and see how severe the injury was. Puka Nacua of the Rams seems like he suffered a PCL injury within the knee, so he looks like he is going to be going on IR for at least 4 weeks. Jordan Addison, wide receiver for the Vikings, suffered some type of an ankle injury. Seems like it's not a significant one, but he does have a lot of soreness. So, gonna have to check the reports later in the week to see if he is going to be cleared to play over the weekend. David Njoku, tight end for the Cleveland Browns, looks like he suffered a high ankle sprain, so he will typically be out for about 4 weeks. And then other than that, obviously CMC was ruled out yesterday with the kind of calf ankle injury type thing. So that's another something that's going to have to be monitored, but it looks like he should be able to go next week.
Well, thank you, Dr. Sam.
Real quick,
Yeah,
I want to touch on two things real fast, just so
sure.
for whoever is watching and paying attention. The Njoku thing, just so you know, high ankle sprain generally lasts all season. Not saying it will, but that's generally what happens. Same thing with Christian McCaffrey and the calf. Most of the time, them calf injuries end up lingering all year long. So just keep that in mind for your starting lineups, for your trade offers, for your trade exceptions, whatever, keep all that in mind.
Got it. Um, that's a good point because I think the high ankle sprain is like the higher chance of re-injury on that. Like you said with the calf, like certain, it's like groin injuries. Like those take forever. The
There's a few of them injuries that they
yep.
linger and linger and linger and
Justin Herbert's plantar fasciitis. That's going to be a thing all year. It won't
yeah,
matter. Like he won't be able to get rid of it until he can get off his feet and not do
yeah,
anything until the off season and stuff like that. So you're right about that.
yeah.
But good report from Dr. Sam. I
Yes, thank you,
appreciate
sir.
that. Yeah, he did a really nice job.
I'll work
I,
on Andy myself as well to get you sponsors. I mean, this is crazy that you're doing all this for free.
yeah, I mean that's part of the contract issue, and I think you're right. I think it's really Andy and Louie's fault. That's whose fault it is. We'll get them on it. You know what? They got to stop beating their meat over there in Omaha and really get on this. Okay. Stop beating your meat and start hitting the street and getting some sponsors. Well, we heard about some of these injuries. Some of you may have some of those players, or you may have other players that you just hate and you think suck, or you want to do something different. So let's hit up the waiver wire. Yeah, I'm gonna do that. All right. We got waiver wire QBs to start us off here. Zach and anybody on this list, especially based on their matchup that you're liking, that you might go with if you're maybe you're an Andy and Jordan Love is no longer your quarterback for the next few weeks. Anybody on here that you're like, hey, I would take a stab at them, even if it's just for
Two,
this week.
two, and
Okay.
not even for just this week. I'd maybe even ride with it for as long as can be.
Sure.
Uh, Baker Mayfield,
Number one. Yes.
and you know this. Sorry, people can say what they want, but I've been with Baker since his rookie year. I believe in Baker Mayfield. I think he is a lot better than people give him credit
Yep.
for.
Agreed.
And he had a pretty decent year last year. I'm not saying he's going to be top 5, right? But there's a chance he could be top 10. It's right. I think last year he was 25 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. That's pretty solid. That's
Yep. Yeah.
good.
Totally.
And then Sam Darnold. I think
Okay.
Sam Darnold is another one of those kind of got a raw deal the few places he's been. I don't think he's fantastic, no, but I think he's pretty good.
Yeah.
And you put him with Justin Jefferson. I think we all saw no one expected that this week,
Yeah.
you know?
And tough matchup against the 49ers this week, so you may not pick him up against the 49ers, but
Sure.
I agree with what you're saying, especially in that offense. Really, I mean, he can do well. And I
Yeah.
agree with you on Baker Mayfield. I'm big on him. It's funny at the top is Daniel Jones, and I don't like it. I think no, even
No.
though the Washington Commander defense, like I said, I think they are one of like the worst defense in the league. I think Daniel
Right.
Jones might be one of the worst starting quarterbacks in our league, and so
So
therefore,
for so if anyone's looking for any more depth than what I just gave you, I take Malik Willis over all these other players as well. Malik Willis has a chance to put up some big numbers. Number one, he'll run. He's a rusher. He's a runner. And number two, that Green Bay team's a good team. Now, I don't know a lot about Malik Willis other than I do know he's a runner. So I don't know how
yeah,
great he's going to be, but he's a runner, so he's going to get you points. He's going
and
to
that
get you
yeah,
points.
and that part makes sense. I would say with that, and maybe we can touch on that a little bit when we get into some other areas, but I will say that injury of Jordan Love really impacts the Green Bay receivers and what you think, because Malik Willis is nowhere close to the thrower of Jordan
No.
Love. I think Malik Willis is like, so if you have other options in the sense of if you're looking at receiving game options and you're looking at a Packer, not right now. I couldn't do it until Love gets back with Malik Willis, but
Well, I semi disagree with you, not
okay. No,
fully.
go ahead. Yeah,
Um, I think that Malik Willis being the quarterback and a runner, I think it opens up a lot for their running game. Okay, not
sure.
necessarily running the ball, but to the running backs, it short passes to them and Jaden Reed, because he'll throw short passes to Jaden Reed, kind of like a Debo. They're going to use, you can see
Yeah.
they're going to use Jalen Reed like a Debo Samuel. That
And I
he's,
love that you said that because a different Sam Norris and I were talking earlier, and we were talking about just that of I think we were talking about yesterday of the Green Bay receivers, the only one I would potentially still put out there is Jaden Reed for that
yeah,
purpose because they try to give him the ball. Doesn't
just because
matter
he's
how
explosive, right? They
correct.
get him the
It's
ball
yep.
short and see what he can do with it.
Sure, they gave him a run. He had a 33-yard run for a
Right,
touchdown, right? It's like
right,
so
right,
Jaden Reed would be the only one I would play. Anyone else? Like I have Christian Watson. I'm not putting Christian Watson in there.
right.
He goes to the bench now,
Mm-hmm,
stuff like that. So yeah,
mm-hmm.
I do agree with you on that. But Baker Mayfield would be my number one from here because I actually agree. I think all year long, if you need another quarterback, he could be someone to help you. Yeah. Oh yeah, you can come say hi. Oh, we got somebody to come say hi.
Hi, Tage. How are you, sweetie? I
What's
miss
up?
you.
Yeah, you missed Uncle Zach too. Yeah. Okay, I gotta go back. Where did it go? No, Uncle Zach, where did you go? Okay, hold on, Tage. Now I don't know what happened. I was trying to show you to him, and then now.
I can still see. I can see.
Okay, so there we are. It was just yeah. So there we go. All right, you gonna say a quick hi, and then I gotta finish this off, okay? Because we have T-ball, so I have to like do all this, so that way we can go do that. Can you say hi?
Hello.
No, we
Hi,
can
I
say.
love you and I miss you.
Why can't we make cookies today? Literally zero time. I'm gonna get done with this, and then we're gonna get ready because then I coach T-ball, so I have to be there before, get it set up, and then I have work after that. So this is why we have zero time. Talk to your mama. Maybe she'll be on it.
Yeah.
That's Tanger Bear. That's her. We haven't made cookies in a few weeks. Yeah, I'm sure. Okay. We have not. Bye. I love you. All right. That's waiver wire quarterbacks. No, I'm over here because like I want to get this part like down the view. Like, okay, I want to get you
I
back
don't
on
know
the.
what you're seeing, but it looks the same on my end. I see the same thing before she came.
Oh, okay. Well, that part's good, I guess, but you're no longer on the screen here. So, but we'll move on to waiver wire running backs. Okay, we had a few things kind of happen this week. Zamir White was not like always the back. Alexander Madison seemed to get in there and did a little bit better. So that was a different one. And Justice Hill got a lot of run this week. Anybody else like on here that you might be looking at or thinking this might be a good pickup?
Um, so I'm not gonna lie. I, if you're in front of me, you better put Justice Hill on your thing because I think Justice Hill is going to be a big pickup. I don't know that they'll run that way all year, but um, the way they ran that, I think Justice Hill is going to get a lot of the passes. It seems like. Um, and then I dropped him, so I know it's kind of this, that, and the other, but I would also pick up Pierre Strong, possibly as a backup. Obviously not a starter, but he's like a good handcuff to probably have for Jerome Ford if anything happens to Jerome Ford.
Sure.
But you could also go. I don't hate Samaje Perine, but I just, they've just got so many weapons that it's going to be hit and miss. But I'm sure there will be like a week or two where Perine probably goes off. just because that's how they do it. They just have so many weapons,
Yeah. And another guy I'd highlight on here, maybe Tank Bigsby. He got a lot more run than we expected from Tank Bigsby, and he did well.
Yeah.
Uh, so he might be another guy that you could look at, especially if I'm the ETN owner. I definitely want to get some Bigsby because I mean he
Yeah.
had 12 carries for 73 yards. I mean
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
nice, and then he also like to me, like that's what makes him valuable. Like he got 12 carries. That's more than I thought he would. I think he got more
Oh
carries
yeah.
than ETN did because ETN
Yeah.
also fumbled. So
Yeah.
as we know, especially with that coaching regime, if you fumble, you're going to be kind of put in the doghouse for most of the time, and it's going to
They
be tough to
he
dig yourself out of it.
ETN had 12 they had the same amount of carries. They both
Okay,
had 12.
but still good work. I mean, that's did not
Yeah.
expect that from Tank Bixby. So I would think,
No.
and it was in a matchup, that against Miami at that point
Yeah.
that like kind of stayed close throughout it.
Yeah. Yep.
So could be another a good player to grab as well. But a few running backs on here, nobody that I'm clamoring for. No, this is the new starter, blah blah, none of that. But you do have some potential options. Casey, this is where I'm looking to. I mean, if I'm Casey, I'm looking at a lot of these other guys and seeing what do they do, how do they fit into this offense, and maybe picking a guy up because maybe you're an injury away from having a good starting running back at that point too.
Yeah.
All right. Waiver wire wide receivers. Anyone on here that you would notate?
Well, Alan Lazard for sure.
Man, I heard
Um,
about it. I was not awake for it, really. Well, I guess I was working technically. But
um, but also Brandon Cooks. Um, but that's another one I don't know. Good luck if you get him. And I think it was on a podcast, but might not have been. Me and you went back and forth about Brandon Cooks, but like I said, of course, one of Dak's touchdowns was to Brandon Cooks,
yep.
not anyone else. So, like I said, he's just going to be he's a good pickup out there. I have a waiver wire on him. So,
Yeah.
um,
And I agree,
I
especially with Ferguson out. I think with
right,
Ferguson out now, that's an even bigger reason to maybe pick up a
right.
Brandon Cooks.
But then one more also would be Tyler Johnson. And I'm going to be 100% honest. Don't know a lot about him, but I know the Rams are a good offense. Matthew Stafford's a beast. And with Nakua being out, he's obviously going to be stepping up. So it might
Yeah,
be a
and then
gamble, but it might pay off, you know?
well, yeah, because I mean they also highlight Demarcus Robinson at the very top,
Yeah.
which same they both got the same amount of targets. But Tyler
I,
Johnson
I,
actually looked
so
he looked good.
I like Tyler Johnson over Demarcus Robinson.
Yeah.
DeMarcus, I mean, we know what Demarcus Robinson is. It's just, I don't think he's that good.
Yeah, and I think he played the role that Tyler Johnson would be taking over is the Nakua role,
Right.
whereas Demarcus will stay in kind of his current role, and so
Yes.
therefore Tyler might be that better option. I agree with that. Wandale got 12 targets too, Wandale Robinson, but it's in a bad offense, not going to score a lot of touchdowns. To me, it's not as valuable at that point. So, not quite sure I'm on him. You had Michael Wilson score a touchdown, Greg Dortch getting more targets, but it's like again, like in our league, I try to focus on guys that are going to hopefully have some touchdown upside as well, because just getting all those targets not going to mean as much. But to your
Yeah.
point, Zach, like that's why maybe a Brandon Cooks is a little bit more enticing because of that touchdown upside that he
Yep.
might provide. So I think actually a good amount of wide receiver targets in our free agent pool, if I'm honest. Like I like a
Yeah.
lot of these guys. So I think especially near the top. So if you're in need for a wide receiver, I think it's actually not a bad week to pick one of these guys up and take that chance. Lastly, we had the waiver wire tight ends. Obviously, a huge game from Isaiah Likely this past week, putting him at the top, and especially with how they used him. I mean, he wasn't a backup; he was playing right there. So obviously, they have plans to use him a lot more than they had in years prior. And there's a few other guys on here that got more run than I thought. Tucker Kraft actually got a lot more run than I thought he would ahead of Musgrave. I think he actually got more targets or at least more routes than Musgrave potentially too. So a lot of guys on here. Any guys on here that you're really liking this week?
Yeah. Isaiah Likely. And I don't know how it escaped me. I thought that I had Isaiah Likely in this league, and I guess I did not. I thought he was one of my, end of the round picks, but I guess
Sure.
I didn't. But I liked him to begin with because you can see that's how they're going to run that offense is two tight ends, and he's going to be like another wide receiver, is what he's going to do.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
basically
they
what they're
just saw
doing.
he's really talented, right? He's got the talent there, so you might as well utilize it.
Yep.
So he's a big one. The rest of them, no, no. Tight ends, we've all discussed this. It's just it's thin. Good luck. Yes, one week, one of these guys is gonna probably get you 15 points, but who is it? I couldn't tell you.
Right.
It's a
Yeah.
crapshoot with tight ends. If you don't have one of the top 3 or 4, you're rolling the dice.
Well, and what I would say for tight ends, I know I said it already about the receivers and like, hey, I'm looking for some touchdown upside. For me, I think of receivers touchdown upside for tight ends, touchdown must. Like you must have be looked at in the end zone for me to really consider you on the tight end front because
Yeah,
I mean that's what I'm needing you for is I'm needing you to get a touchdown and likely can do that for you. Kobe Parkinson got a good amount. Like, I mean, I think he ended up with 4 or 5 catches, I think, on the day, something like that. Um, yeah, and like, but I don't know if they how high value they were. So that's the tough
right.
part with him, but he is their starting guy. And usually, and with Nakua now being out, I don't know if they're going to try to use that more or not. But yeah, no one else on here like really inspires me. Chigakonkwo, I only list him because if he doesn't catch that one touchdown pass, he has a dud of a day. So
Yeah,
he
yeah,
kind of, and that was a tough pass. I mean, great play, but on an offense again where I'm not quite sure where they're going. So
yeah,
a lot of these
yeah,
guys are tough. Theo Johnson, he was on the field a lot for the Giants, and he got some good run in that sense. But he got 1 catch for 18 yards. Like so
yeah,
it's a guy on the field a lot, but in a bad offense. So how valuable is that? I mentioned Tucker Kraft earlier because he got like the run a little bit more like routes run than
yeah,
Musgrave did. But again, he only caught a couple balls and there's some
yeah,
good targets and he got some decent yardage. But Isaiah likely it's like likely or bust. That's probably where we're at with that.
yeah,
So those
yeah.
in need of a tight end or just want to stash them, go for it. Hopefully you're up there in the waiver priority. So we'll see. But yeah, he's definitely a good tight end to have on your roster. Well, that gets us through the waiver wire and through some of the players we might like. So that leads us right into other transactions that happen, which in our Trade Central location. This time we had one trade, and that was something you had already referenced. You didn't like the trade, obviously, but Casey gets a Rico Dowdle, whereas Allison gets a Dalton Kincaid. Neither one had anything spectacular happen to them this past week, so not much to say in regards to that. In fact, Dalton Kincaid's lack of usage was very surprising, but who knows like what all that means. And then on Casey's side, he's given up Rico Dowdle. Um, you know, Rico Dowdle not it seems like Ezekiel Elliott kind of has that backfield is really how that feels.
So quickly, I didn't not like this trade. I just it what's a good way to put this?
You don't feel
I
like it
don't
helped
I don't
him.
think that it's a difference maker for Casey. Okay. I
Gotcha.
love this trade. Number one, especially for Allison. Okay. I realize it was a bad week for Dalton Kincaid, but I think that's huge that she got Dalton Kincaid. I think that's big. Giving her a good tight end, I think he'll have some good weeks, right?
Sure.
Now, Rico Dowdle, I don't hate the pickup, but again, it's not even a starter. Like I think he's a good pickup to have, but he's not even a starter. So yet again, you got another running back, but you have 2 running backs that aren't even starters. And I mean, like,
Yeah. And I can
it's,
see that because Dalton Kincaid is a good tight end, and we think that that was just an anomaly, is what you're kind of hoping from Allison's side. And
yeah,
in regards to the running back side, I mean, Rico got almost 10 touches and a good offense. So, but you're right. It seems like Zeke is more the getting more play than Rico is. And Zeke isn't that injury prone. Like he's getting older, but he's usually on the field a lot. Like he usually
yeah,
kind of stays tough. So that could be
yeah,
something that where Rico is often sharing that backfield. So I can understand kind of your sentiment there as far as that goes. One of the things I would also highlight to Casey, looking at his roster, is Casey, use the IR spot. You have two guys that are out, like they literally won't be coming back for weeks.
Right.
If they're listed as out, so this is for anybody, but they're
Yeah.
listed as
Yeah.
out or on IR, they can go into the IR slots. And even if that's just to pick up somebody for that week. So even if it's like, hey, a guy was ruled out right before a game, if you can slot him into the IR spot and still pick up somebody else, like that's what you could do. Like Glenn technically could have done that this week and put CMC in the IR, and then he could have picked up, even if he just wanted to take a chance on a different running back in the
Right.
San Francisco backfield, like he could have done
Right.
that and he'd be
Yeah.
fine. So utilize those IR spots. Like I'm big on that. Like even just to steal somebody so someone else can't take them.
Well, so
Maybe it's
that's one more thing about this specific trade. That's another reason I don't love the trade for Casey is I feel like, okay, you clearly were willing to come away from Dalton Kincaid. I feel like you could have gotten more for Dalton Kincaid.
sure,
I
and maybe
really do.
so, yeah.
I really do.
And you may have, I don't know. Like I'm not. It kind of depends on the manager. I wasn't gonna try to go for one of Casey's guys because I have Trey McBride, so I'm not going for him.
Right.
Kyle's got a George Kittle. He's not looking for him. You have
I'm
Kyle
just
Pitts,
saying, I'm
maybe.
not saying that I would have done it, but I would have considered it maybe giving him like Najee Harris for him,
Sure,
you know, which is a
sure,
better running back than Rico Dowdle. I mean,
agreed. So
so
yeah, and I
I'm
can
not
feel you
saying I
there.
would have done it, but I would have thought about it. I would have thought I would have had to crunch some
Yeah,
numbers and
and this will be the last time we're gonna say it. So Zach, I'm including you in this. You can't talk about it anymore. This is also why it's tough when you auto draft because your team you were then kind of forced into this spot of devaluing a guy who may have more value because there were actually hardly any tight ends that did anything this week. Isaiah Likely, who was no one drafted, was the number one tight end, I think, this week, right? Like so none of the actual drafted tight ends really did much. And so you could look at it in a way of like, well, yeah, he didn't do well, but Kyle Pitts barely got over 10 points. He is the only tight end started this week that got double digit points. The
thank
only
you.
one in our
Thank
league.
you. I appreciate that compliment.
Yeah. Brock Bowers was next at 8.8 points. So that can tell you, hey, maybe to your point, Zach, like maybe I don't want to give up, give this up or do this, for that because everybody sucked this week. But
Yeah.
either way, it happened. I'm not fully off it because I think you're still getting a running back and a good offense. But I see your point, Zach, and that's also a reason why being at the draft is important because then you don't fall into this situation where you feel pigeonholed potentially into like getting rid of somebody just because you have too much talent at one spot.
Yeah.
But we're going to get off of Trade Central and move into a really important part of this segment, and that is the Javante or Godwin segment that will now run through the rest of this year, Zach. Are you ready for this?
Oh my goodness.
Godwin whooped him up, and to your point, had Andy accepted that trade, played Godwin in the flex instead of Javante, he beats Tyler, and it's a whole different ball game. But here's what I'll say: I didn't watch either game. I heard Javante truly didn't look good. I heard his first run looked good, and after that first run, it didn't look so great. And for Godwin, the only thing I'll say is I really think that Washington Commanders have the worst defense, and that is part of it. However, they have moved Chris Godwin to the slot. They said they're going to play him in the slot more. That's where he's comfortable. He's a great player from the slot, especially in PPR. And if he gets a touchdown like he did today, that's going to help him. Without it, he still gets 12.3, right? So I don't want to rip on. Well, I shouldn't say that because he's got to catch that pass. So without it, he's probably around 10. So it is important to me that Godwin gets touchdowns, which he hadn't
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
I don't know if I listed off this stat before, but why I was so adamant that no Javante over Godwin was 4 years in a row, Godwin has lost 2 touchdowns each year. So basically, like 4 or 5 years ago, he had 9 touchdowns. It was a big
Yeah.
season. That following year, he got 7. That following
7,
year, he got
5,
5. That following year, he got 3.
3.
So it's like
Yeah.
kind of kept coming down and down and down. And
Yeah.
for me in our league, that's such an important part. But I think Godwin's a good player. I really like him in general, and I
So
tried to get
so
him in
so my
PPR
side,
leagues.
right. So my side of the argument was though, if you look at his numbers, he's generally catching 50 or sorry, 5 catches for 50 yards.
Sure, per game.
So you're talking, 8 to 10 points for a wide receiver. If you're getting that steadily, right? Because he's steady,
Yeah,
right? Or the touchdown just makes it that much better, but he's steady with 10-ish points. That's
sure.
where I was going with it, where
Yeah,
you're going to have these weeks where Javonte has 4, and I guarantee you, if he keeps playing, right, Javonte will have a week where he has 25,
sure,
probably.
sure. But we'll see, man. It sounded like it wasn't going great. Jaleel McLaughlin got a lot more run than Javante, from what I saw numbers wise. I didn't see the game at all. And I think what else is tough, and I know that the Seattle defense now, I know it's Mike McDonald that's over there now, and so he was the guy who created the kind of this Ravens defense that we all know and love, and he was a big part of that. So he's bringing that defensive flair there. But last year they
Mhm.
were terrible against the run, and they weren't like, you know what I mean. So it's not like he went up against some stellar defense that was just so great against the run, and that's why he didn't
Right,
do well. That's the
right.
part that kind of worries me on that. But otherwise, like I said, I heard he looked good on the first run and didn't look great afterwards. And then Jaleel just kind of got a lot of the work. And I think Denver, not a great offense, might be losing a lot, and that might make Javante not as valuable. And my take on it, not good. So I'm willing to
Well,
eat it, but every week,
how much I love, doing this. So this was, you can tell everyone this was a surprise to me. I didn't know
it
you were
was,
doing this.
it
So this
was.
is hilarious and I love it. I love it. I love it.
Hey man, we got to keep track of these. It's important. I got another one, another league that
What's
is
what's great is that if I lose this, it just reaffirms I'm no expert.
win-win,
It's a win-win
win-win.
for me. It's a win-win for me.
Yeah, but good week for Godwin. Honestly, he was
Yeah.
a wide receiver one this week. So anybody that's a number 12 or better in position rank would be the one at that position. And Chris Godwin did that this week. And so did Mike Evans. So think about that. We talked about Baker Mayfield. Again, terrible defense they played, but you got Evans and Godwin, both wide receiver ones this week, with Baker Mayfield, I think, being the number one QB on the week. He may have even eked
Yeah.
out, I think he beat Anthony Richardson, who had an awesome week. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was definitely, and so that also means when your player is facing the Washington Commanders, play that player. They will play good. That's probably what that means too. But we got to keep moving on because I do have t-ball practice coming up.
Yes.
But we
Yes.
have the comment of the week, which I actually had it differently. So the comment of the week was actually my comment about the police officers being able to say that they are one of some of the few that tackled Tyreek because of that photo. But then Tyler came taunting Andy with that old "What happened, Andy? What happened?" So I thought that was a really good one that came through during a major upset of this week because I think that what was that was the largest deficit projection wise, and boy, did it not go so great, and that's why we play the game. So nice
That'd
job,
be
Tyler.
that was my comment of the week as well. So
Cool,
it's
love
kind of
it.
awesome. That's funny.
It was great. So nice
I
job,
agree with
Tyler.
Allison, though. I will give an honorable mention to Bob and his well-timed gifts when we were all
Yes,
talking. They were okay. They were okay.
that's why I kind of want to make him the gift police because like he's so good with them and he's quick with them, and so it's obvious that he is maybe an expert. And I
Right.
don't know that Sam's an expert more than he is simply an annoyed fan.
Yeah.
So I
Oh, he's
think,
just annoyed with them. That's why I
yeah.
get so many of them.
So I
I
think,
I I might just start doing 3 a day just to be that guy.
but Bob, like I think Bob could be a great police of it because if Bob's going to look at it from a quantity and quality perspective. I think Bob will give you a longer leash if you've got
Right.
quality
Right.
gifts going out there. But if you're not
Like,
providing a quality
does your
gift,
gift make sense for what's being talked about?
yeah,
Right.
Bob might tell you, "Hey, two bad ones in a row, and buddy, you're out of here. I'm giving
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
you get just like in soccer a red card, and you're out of here." Bob
Yeah.
might be more of that guy. So Sam, let's talk about this. So we'll restructure this contract. I think definitely maybe remove some responsibilities so that way when Andy and Louie get terrible sponsors that don't pay as much, it'll be already built in the contract if you have less responsibility. But now I might have to find some sponsors for Bob, and I don't know.
The more I
Don't know what
think
to think.
about it, Glenn should be thrown in there too. He had a couple good ones too. You
Yeah,
guys
Glenn's
could
always got some good ones, but he's been.
Louis and Andy, you can hire Glenn. How about
But
that?
but Glenn, where the F have you been? We don't know. You're retired and yet you are even less involved. So I don't understand. So what's going on, Glenn? We got to get you on here, but we got to keep moving forward, Zach. But
Yeah,
I do
yeah,
love great comment of the week, Tyler, and a lot of good honorable mentions too, Zach. I appreciate you throwing some
yeah.
honorable mentions out there. Here are our standings after week one. So week one, we have Louis at the top of the East and Bob obviously at the top of the West, with Glenn hitting the bottom of the East and Andy hitting the bottom of the West. And this is week one, so we're just highlighting for that purpose. But yeah, this is where we stand after the first week. Here's our first matchup I'm going to highlight. So I put soccer versus rugby up here, and I did it for a couple reasons. A, obviously Allison's a big soccer player, and it shows in her lack of scoring. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And to me, Louis, I believe, is a rugby coach at heart. He just doesn't know it, and so I just thought it'd be a cool little title to have for their matchup this week. Louis is showing that he is down, but that's because Puka is obviously out. Puka's
Yeah,
out,
yeah.
and Ferguson sounds like Ferguson will also be out because he has a sprained MCL. Don't see him playing this week.
Yeah.
Vikings defense against San Fran, he's probably going to change that up too. So he's got a few different changes to make, so his projection might not be quite right
Right,
within
right.
that. But anything that you would note about this matchup or something to highlight for these two people?
I mean, we can move through these relatively quickly. I don't know. I
It's
mean,
week one. You
obviously,
don't freaking know.
obviously Louis has some changes to make, and
Yep,
one of them's not bad. He can put Smith and Jigba in over Nakua, and they're playing New England, so that's probably not terrible.
sure. Well, New
He
England
does
played
have
pretty
to
good
figure
against
out the
Cincinnati.
tight end thing. That's a big deal,
Yeah,
but
I would
you
say the
know,
same.
as far as the rest goes,
But
I
what are the
I think it's a decent matchup, right? It's pretty
I think
good,
so. Tajay Spears, I don't know if I like him in the flex. We'll see what else like she might actually have
right?
for her flex spot if she decides to change it up there. So I'm
Yeah,
not a huge just after this week, it just looked like he was not the main guy, and they were really
right.
more focused of getting getting Pollard the ball. But she may not have other great options and might be looking for the free agent on the free agent side of this to just see what she can do there. So we'll move on to the next matchup. I put CMC or no, and I'm gonna be honest, and I really hope that CMC does not play, and that you get to play Jordan Mason, Zach, because I'm always gonna be afraid of that man against me, because his projection already is close to me, and that's because he doesn't. Well, I guess that is including CMC with his projections. That's kind of interesting, but we'll see what that goes. And it sounds as though Dr. Sam feels CMC will play. This is
Right.
my starting lineup, though, Zach, as we currently stand. Like I said, I had to take out Christian Watson,
Yeah.
and I'm not as certain on my backup running backs really aren't there. And so I'm looking at it like, do I want a Rashid Shaheed against Dallas, or do I have a Brian Thomas against Cleveland? Both are tough defenses, and I'm not quite sure. Or do I need to go a different route altogether? I don't know, but this is kind of where I'm landing so far.
Yeah. So the only thing I would say here is I would maybe consider Deontay Johnson over Brian Thomas Jr.
Sure.
That would probably be my only thing that I would do different on your side. I know we're
Did
past
you
that, but I
see
forgot to mention it. And now that
did
I
you see the
see
Carolina
Meow
game?
Meow's team, what?
Did you see the Carolina game? Did you
Yeah,
watch it? Okay,
yeah,
so you're still suggesting that after
yeah, yeah.
watching that.
Um,
Oh,
yeah. Let's just keep our fingers that that was just an anomaly, right?
sure,
Division
exactly.
opponent, right? Like those games are weird sometimes, right? Anyway, CMC owner, meow meow. Uh, uh, I have Jordan Mason, and I'd like to improve my team. Just
Okay.
throwing it out there,
Okay.
you know.
So
Not saying I'm going to trade him for pennies
yeah,
just because he's
right.
CMC's backup. like I said, I feel like he's pretty valuable right now because I think CMC will be in and out all year. That's what I'm assuming is going to happen.
Well, and from Glenn's perspective, I mean, if he's able to play Jordan Mason while he doesn't win that game because he was down 43 or 44 points, it would have been a much closer matchup. He'd have been much higher in the East
Right,
at that point if he has Jordan Mason because he can easily play him. And now he's fourth in the East after week one instead of sixth in the East. And I know that these
right.
things, hey, they don't mean it. Well, yeah, they do in the end. Like every week does matter in the number of points you're scoring because that's also what's going to separate you into the playoffs. So yeah, so while he still would have taken an L, it would have been a much less of an L, and he'd have felt better about it. So
Yeah.
I like it, and we'll see where Glenn goes with that. So uh,
Well, and real quickly, just to speak on the matchup, I got a feeling you might not like this week
yeah.
if McCaffrey plays.
Oh, got it. Yeah, because it's at
If
Minnesota.
McCaffrey
Oh
plays,
my
like I
God.
like Anthony Richardson's matchup against Green Bay.
I don't
Like
like Pollard against the Jets. I don't like McLaughlin against Pittsburgh. I don't like
no, but
Olave
Mark, I
against
think Mark
Dallas.
Andrews against the Raiders is going to be okay. I think he'll be
Yeah,
better than for week one,
and that defense
And
against the
again,
Raiders is better.
Ravens defense playing Las Vegas, like, oh
Yeah,
boy.
better.
And again, Christian McCaffrey against Minnesota, like if he plays, it could be,
He al he also has Marvin Harrison, so which would be supposedly was supposed to be Kyler Murray's number one target,
right,
although that did not happen at all this week, which
right.
is fucking crazy. But that's also something that caps potentially some of my upside in it, and so
If
that's
I
a
can
good
be
thing.
honest, I feel like they did that because that's what everyone expected.
True, that could have been it. Well, part of it they were saying was they got up 17-3 real quick, and it seemed
Yeah,
like they were trying to run the clock, like and try
right.
to like
Run the
waste some
ball.
time
Yeah,
instead of
yeah,
continuing what they were doing, which I always hate that, especially that early in the game. And I
yep,
get that you're trying to control the ball, but at the same time, like I, especially early on, I don't like when a team just kind of stops what got them there, to
right.
that point. I don't like that.
Yeah,
But you're right, like there could be some truth to that. And to your point, like even the guy that I'm like, oh great, like but he's my quarterback is he's got the wide receiver for it. So that
yeah,
could go south. So
yep,
we will see. I might make some adjustments. I'm hit or miss on some of my matchups here. So we'll see how that goes. But should be a close matchup between Louis and myself. And he's number
yep.
one in the East, or sorry, Glenn and myself. And
Glenn and yourself.
I thought it was Louis for I don't know why that hit me in the head. But we'll see because I do like Glenn's team. We talked about it before. Missing CMC was a bummer, but he'll
Yeah.
probably be back this week. This is your matchup, so you're going up against Kyle, so it's third versus four in the East, and he's got Dolphins defense right now, which Josh Allen is playing, and so is James Cook on your side playing. But does he keep that defense? I'm not sure. So I'd be interested to see how that kind of plays out. What's something that you're kind of looking at or might be worried about in this matchup?
If New Orleans can play the way they played and keep that limited,
Sure,
because
sure.
like I said, everything else, he's got Derrick Henry against the Raiders. He's got Kenneth Walker against New England. I mean, he's got Devontae Smith against Atlanta. I mean, he's got George
Kittle
Kittle
versus
against
Minnesota.
Minnesota.
Yeah.
He's got Chicago. Like
Yeah, but
he could
Chicago's
have
a
a big.
beast, man. Chicago's number one defense from the league, and
I
I know
know,
it's only
but
against
I feel
Tennessee,
like
but
he could have a big week. I feel like he could have a big week. But
yeah, any of those
I
guys, I
like
guess, could go off each
I
week. That's
like my
true.
matchups a little bit too.
Sure.
Obviously, I don't love having Josh Allen. I don't like having two Buffalo players and a Miami player. But
Yeah.
I
Yeah, but
mean,
that's good for correlation a lot of times, though. That's good to
yeah,
correlate a game, and if that game goes
yeah,
off, then maybe all those players go off. But
yeah.
what I don't
Hopefully,
like,
it's a high scoring game. Yeah,
seven of your eight players are playing away.
yeah,
They're visitors this week, and how does
yeah,
that impact them? So
yep,
that's interesting. You don't often see that many
yeah,
on a team of 7 or 8, so that'll be interesting. But
yeah.
as far as a lean, either way, I will say that it'll be tough. We'll see how Kenneth Walker. He says he's fine, so he's probably going to play against New England. But New England slows the ball down. They slow the game down, so that's less touches for Walker, and they have a good defense. They played well, so who
Yeah,
knows what's going to happen there. But to your point, like Justin Jefferson against San Fran, if you're San Fran, why that's the number one guy I'm focused on. I'm just trying to shut that man down and
right.
we'll worry about other stuff. San Fran's a great defense, so he could have
Well,
a
and I
tough
picked
week
up
too. This would
Justin
be an interesting
Fields. Maybe I
matchup.
played Justin Fields instead of Josh Allen.
We will see. We will see. But no, I lean your side. I lean the way the projections are as well. But we'll
I
see if
think
he
it's going to
continues
be.
that Dolphins defense. I just think he might get something
I think
different
it's going
going.
to be a very close game. I think this is going to be a close game.
Yeah.
I'm nervous about
Well,
this one.
you should always be. All right. Father-in-law knows best. He's obviously not updated. He's probably looking for a quarterback. He's got to be looking for a quarterback in the waivers. So these projections are not correct. We'll see who he adds as his quarterback for this upcoming week. Um, right now, he still has Javonte Williams in, and he does. We'll see if that changes also. But EJ coming back, still got good projection, still has a roster that I like on his side. And he's even putting Dobbins in against Carolina. J.K. Dobbins will probably do some good work. So we'll see how this goes. But how do you see this matchup going?
See a bad week for Andy. I think it's going to be a rough week for Andy.
It's tough not to see it that
Yeah.
way. I'll be
I
honest.
mean, like we discussed, EJ has a wonderful team, and just looking quickly, boy, he's got some great matchups this week too. I
Yeah,
mean, yeah, where Andy, he might have tough ones. Maybe, he's got Bijan going up against that Philly team with Drake London. I mean,
yeah.
who knows what's going to happen there? I guess the rest aren't terrible, but I would not play Javonte Williams against Pittsburgh.
No, I think that I wouldn't do that either. That's a really tough matchup to play him against.
So
You
I don't
know,
know what he could do. Looking, I mean,
Lad McConkey, George
He could try
Pickens.
Shakir for Khalil Shakir for Buffalo. He could maybe try George Pickens.
I'd actually go away from George Pickens. I forgot that they have Patrick Surtain over there in Denver, and that's he's only going to focus on um he's just going to focus on Pickens, and he shut down DK Metcalf this week. So
Yeah,
that
yeah,
might be a
that's a
tough one.
great point.
So
Yeah, that's a great point. And now that I look too, look at his bench. Yeah, and EJ's bench is yeah, yeah,
yeah, so I lean EJ this week.
yeah,
It's funny after picking Andy, Jordan Love going down, that hurts a lot, and seeing Javante do so poorly, I think those two things now are not in favor of him. Kelsey did not do well, so you don't know what are they doing over there in KC. But I do like that he has him against Patrick Mahomes on the other side, so that's good. It's interesting on EJ's side. He's gonna go with J.K. Dobbins. He had a great week, and he is going up against Carolina, which sucks. They're not a good defense.
yeah,
So that's probably the number one reason. But and he's still leaving out Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy for another week.
yeah,
So that's interesting. That's just interesting to me. That's all I'm going to say about that. But good
yeah,
luck to both of you, and we'll see if father-in-law actually does know best.
yeah,
I'm throwing this one out as the matchup of the week potentially because it's the first and second place teams in the West. They both won. It's the only game that we have this week of two winning teams, right? I mean, it's only week one, so it just you can only be 1-0. But oddly, this is the only one that we have of winning team. So one of them will come away with this with being 1-1. Afterwards, I say matchup of the week because I do like Sam's team still. He's going to have to figure out Njoku and get a different tight end in there. But once he does, his projection will now go up to like near that 120 range at that point, and they'll be a little bit closer because of that. So it'll be interesting. And Achane got an injury too, so did Raheem Mostert. We'll see what that looks like for Sam. What do you see in this one, and who you leaning towards?
just looking quickly, man, it's hard to not say. I honestly, depending, I guess it depends on who he picks up at tight end, whether it's a trade or a pickup. But if he can get in Isaiah Likely, oh boy, I mean, I got Sam probably winning this, and I know it doesn't look that way, but I don't mind Dobbs' team, especially a couple of them. But Joe Mixon playing Chicago, you just
Yep.
said number one defense. They ain't giving him 33 points this week.
And at that point, you're playing your defense against one of your starting running backs. And are you doing that?
Exactly. And then now, who knows? But he does have Brian Robinson playing New York Giants, so that might be good for him.
I like that. Oh, I love
Yeah,
Ryan. I loved him
yeah,
this week. I mean, he looked good.
yeah. But yeah, I just feel like Sam's team is okay. But we'll see. Joe Burrow, I don't know what's going on with Joe Burrow. Like, hopefully he can,
Yeah,
if he gets that projected 22 points or more, I think that Sam's team is probably going to win this week.
sure.
I
And
also don't know the status of Achan either, so that's a big if too.
yep, that's his boom. He needs that boom in that lineup in order to do something with it. But
Right.
interesting matchups all around. There are some tough matchups for some of these guys. But
Yeah.
I would say on Sam's side, Alvin Kamara against Dallas. I'm not even as worried about that because I think he gets a lot of passing game work
Yeah.
against Dallas, who
Yeah.
heavy blitzers. They're gonna be attacking in there. That might actually
Absolutely.
help Kamara. And so all
Yeah.
of the matchups that Sam's going into with his
Yeah.
players, to your point, a lot of good ones were on the other side. Chicago, New England, Cleveland, those are some of the defenses you're facing, and those are tough. And even Atlanta, like Atlanta's defense, they're trying to really bolster that, and
Yeah.
they've added some players. They're going to get better. And Grady Jarrett, who is one of the top defensive linemen in our league, was out all year last year with an injury, and he's back for him.
Yeah.
So I think even Eagles going against them could be a tough one. So you might be right here in it. And on Bob's side, having Mixon against his own defense, that's tough because it does cap your upside a lot of times. So
Yeah.
just something to keep an eye on. And this
Yep.
is here's our last one. Our last one is going to be Tyler versus Casey. I put how the turntables turn, and I only put that because Tyler having a rough year last year. Really nice for him to get that first victory of the year right off the bat. I don't care how ugly it may have been. Whereas Casey was kind of doing that to people last year. Casey ended up having the best regular season record while having one of the lowest point totals in our league. So it can happen, and maybe it is turning towards Tyler being able to do that. So we'll see how that goes. Anything that you're notating from this matchup that might be important?
Come on, Tyler. Come on, Tyler.
I know,
No,
always rooting for him. We're rooting for him to get
no.
into the
I
playoffs.
mean, honestly, this might be a week where maybe Casey gets some points. Um, Aaron Jones going against San Francisco hurts him big time, but that's about it, right? I mean, uh, I like Tyler's matchups minus CJ Stroud. I mean, going against Chicago can be tough, but I think we know CJ Stroud's monster, right?
Yep.
So I don't think that's going to slow him down. Now, will it be to Stephon Diggs? Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm rooting for Tyler here. I'm rooting for Tyler. I don't think I can be any more clear that I'm rooting for
I know, and then I just want Tyler to get the playoffs this year. That's all I want. I want those who haven't been in the playoffs yet to get there. I
Yeah,
think that's what I aim for. But you're right. That Chicago matchup's like the only tough matchup for his players on the week. Ultimately, I mean, there are some middling matchups, meaning they're middle of the road, but should have a decent week. And we'll see what happens with Pittman. I mean, in that in the offense, and are they going to get him going a little bit more? But we'll see because I think that offense is going to run off of those big plays. That's how it's going to be. But
yeah,
and on the other side, we talked about already. He's got to get some better running backs. We'll see if he ends up trying to put Dowdle in. I don't know if he will or not. Trying to squeak him in. He doesn't need to, and we'll see. But maybe he does try because he's got a better touchdown opportunity at that point. I don't know, but good matchup. It'll be an interesting one. It's one of the closest projections we have on the week. So I will be
yeah.
interested to see how this one turns out. But that is our week one wrap up for the FFFL in 2024. We are moving on to week two. Good luck to everybody in week two. For those of you who did not get a win in week one, I wish you the best into week two. Except for who I'm facing. I don't want them to win anything. I think Glenn should continue to lose, and I hope he does. That's my goal for that. But good luck to everybody else besides Glenn this week. I wish you all the absolute best. Any parting words for the FFFL this week?
I don't believe so. Good luck, everybody, except Kyle.
Yeah. And
Good
maybe
luck,
Andy, because he
Glenn.
didn't take a trade because he could have
Good
had a
luck,
winning.
Tyler.
Well, Glenn, you at least got one person on this podcast that wants you to win because the other does not. I do not want that victory, sir. But I wish you all the best. Much love to everybody out there. We miss you. I miss you, Zach. I can't wait to see you guys in person again. We always have a great time. Alice and I always talk about just the belly laughs that we have as a family and how much we enjoy spending time there. So I can't wait for
Yeah,
that as well, man. And thank you for doing this with me. I appreciate you.
no problem. Love y'all.
Love you too. Bye. Okay.
Later, man.
Yeah, later, bud. I'm sorry, I got to end it and
Yeah, yeah. You're
battle.
good, man. I know.
Take care. Thanks again. I
Get
appreciate
going.
you.
All right. Love you, bro.
Peace. Love you too.
Later.